Pues muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. Welcome to all of you. And this is the Disaster Recovery, Hazard Mitigation Programs, Nature-Based Solutions Examples in Puerto Rico. Welcome once again. My name is Paul Fericelli. I am the main assessor for FEMA and a senior climate advisor. Before starting and introduce you to our panelists, I want to share a very brief summary of the FEMA efforts that we are implementing. As you know, climate change is one of the biggest challenges that we are facing, and it will be so for the next few decades. This represents a profound crisis for the nation and makes disasters to be more intense, more frequent, and more destructive. Therefore, FEMA recognizes this and has developed a strategic plan for the years 2022 to 2026. What we wish to be is to lead the community to resilience, which means that we can prepare and adapt to what's coming. The objectives that apply to this is that we want to give more knowledge about climate to management, hazard management workers. We want to have a better grasp on resilience and mitigation, and that we all can have the knowledge about climate changes and how this knowledge will reflect or impact cooperation after disasters, mitigation, and responses. And these basic knowledge will allow us to better relate with the population we're serving. For sure, having this knowledge will allow us to communicate more efficiently with state governments, with communities, in order to have conversation about the risks associated with climate change. FEMA has created new ways of unifying their programs and resources so that we can deal with this profound crisis from climate change. And this includes an increase in resilient infrastructure, funds, so that communities, providing funds so that communities will be able to respond to all of these situations. Natural disasters are those that are promoted or caused by climate change. Another of the things that we're doing is that we're increasing the investment that include nature-based solutions. These solutions are going to be key to reduce and decrease the climate impact. We are going to be providing information about the resources and funds available and how these nature-based solutions increase resiliency in these disasters that are exacerbated due to climate change. We're going to be talking about all of these topics and providing examples of nature-based solutions, among others. The panelists of this session are Nitza, Ayala, Fontanez, Kathia, Sanchez, Ríos, and Pedro, Angueira, Quirós. Nitza is architect. She comes from Humacao. She has graduated from the University of Puerto Rico, and she has a preparation in this area. Kathia is an architect. She is graduated from the University of Puerto Rico, and she has a master's in architecture and a bachelor's degree in design. Pedro is from San Juan, Puerto Rico, has a degree in architecture and environmental design. They all know how to evaluate proposals for mitigation programs. We feel very happy to have Puerto Ricans that are committed to creating a recovery that is sustainable. So now we want to give Kathia and Nitza their opportunity to share their presentation. Thank you all. Well, thank you very much. My name once again is Nitza Ayala, and I will be sharing this presentation with Kathia and Pedro, and we're going to be talking about the disaster recovery programs. In this first section, we're going to focus on these funding opportunities that exist as a way of offering an introduction. If we follow the line of what Paul just mentioned and how FEMA as an agency has been transforming to deal with climate change, as he mentioned, we are witnesses that these natural disasters are more frequent, more intense, and more destructive. This poses a risk to the community and the nationwide resilience. So in the emergency management, we are getting ready to anticipate the demands that come from these extreme events. And every day that we work as emergency managers, we're learning to be able to serve in these situations. For example, droughts, forest fires, floodings, and as an agency, we have the opportunity to collaborate with the community so that we can invest in a better adaptation to climate change, as Paul mentioned before. There are several strategies that FEMA has already in the works. Among them, we have, we're going to summarize as building resilience. You're going to see it in the cycle that we see here. Building resilience is a process in a cycle. It doesn't have an ending point. It's a long-term process. This process requires several steps so that we can reach our goal. We are going to mention it in this order, although it does not necessarily follow this particular order in a given community, but we start with the risk assessment. We do the mitigation planning, mitigation funding, and then we build community capacity. This means that FEMA is offering tools, grants, and other initiatives to support stakeholders in assessing risk, plannings to mitigate risk, funding, mitigation projects, and or building community capacity. So what we're trying to do is help in identifying those risks and in attending and mitigating such risks. We want to be able to fund mitigation projects and capacity building for the community through education when they face this type of event. In the next months, we're going to have a memo that was recently approved so that we can provide assistance in this topic of climate change adaptation and hazard mitigation. We're going to start with FEMA's definition for hazard mitigation. For us, is any cost-effective sustained action taken to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to people and property from natural hazards and their effects. Personally, I like to emphasize three key words in this definition. The first one is reduce or eliminate, because we know that we might have one more risk that is affecting a community. The second is long-term risks, because we understand that we must be ready, not just for the short term, for the long term. And last but not least, the concept of natural events or natural hazards, because we are mitigating all of those events that are out of our control and not those that we can control. So we have to respond to all that is beyond our control and affects all of the community. FEMA has several programs with mitigation funds, and each one has requirements that are different. They're divided in two areas. The first area is the program for public assistance and mitigation, and the second is for hazard mitigation assistance, known as HMA. In these programs of mitigation, we have two programs that are HMGP. One is after hazard mitigation regular program, and the one that is used after forest fires. The other two programs that are available within HMA that are not necessarily tied to a disaster are BRIC, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, which is the evolution of the pre-disaster mitigation from 2020, and of course FMA, which is a flood mitigation assistance program for those properties that are participating and are insured. These programs for hazard mitigation assistance are looking to decrease the losses and the vulnerabilities. And today we're going to concentrate only on the two first programs that we are seeing, which are the ones that are available in Puerto Rico. So we're looking at HMGP and Public Assistance Program and Policy Guide. If you want more information on the other programs that are available, you can go to FEMA, and we're going to offer that link at the end of the presentation. The public assistance mitigation is a reimbursement program that allows us to implement mitigation strategies for future events. Similar damages, we want to avoid similar damages during a facility repair. It's one of the two programs that is available after a presidential major disaster declaration, when the state government determines that that event goes beyond the state government's efforts or capabilities, as happened in Maria. FEMA deals with the public assistance mitigation to deal with government agencies, municipal governments, state governments, and depending on the services, other companies or corporations. And we have the eligibility criteria in the Public Assistance Program and Policy Guide. All of these mitigation projects must be reasonable, feasible, cost-effective, and must comply with EHP laws, regulations, and EOs. It should not create susceptibility to other risks. The Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, as well as public assistance start to increase mitigation projects after an event for reconstruction. But it is different from the public program because HMGP is a grant program that allows us to mitigate those facilities that were not directly damaged, but are in the same region that it was impacted by the event. So the government of Puerto Rico would be applying for these type of assistance through their duly elected official or a mitigation official. So the government that is interested in this program will be able to receive assistance. Another thing that is important that has to be aligned with the mitigation program. All projects must be cost-effective and feasible at mitigating the risk of the hazards, meaning flooding, droughts, and others. Finally, FEMA cannot provide assistance for activities funded or under the authority of another federal agency or program like the Corps of Engineers. So most of the projects that are under evaluation right now under HMGP, many of them are being reviewed phase by phase. So there's a possibility that FEMA can, for example, provide funds for studies prior to design that allows that we can integrate and promote all of those nature-based strategies in the process of design. I'm going to leave you now with Kathia for the next part of this presentation. Thank you, Nitza. Good afternoon. My name is Kathia Sanchez, and we're going to be talking about funding climate change adaptation and nature-based solutions through FEMA HM programs. Next slide. As part of the applications to be able to deal with climate change, we have been receiving projects that have, for example, secondary sources of powers or trying to use nature-based solutions for events such as droughts and flooding. As part of the energy projects, which is basically on the 404 area that Nitza mentioned, we have to realize that this has to be something that allows us to be more protected. It has to have redundancy for critical facilities. That means that those facilities will be determined by the government of Puerto Rico. They will decide which ones are important services. For example, some of the types is when we have hybrid solar systems, when we have a balanced solution that combines batteries, solar panels, etc. Sometimes we also have one of the types is have solar panels, but not batteries. So we know that sometimes we cannot have the solar panels with batteries. Sometimes that happens. We don't have a way to store that energy that we gather from the sun. When we talk about nature-based solutions, we would call different names such as green energy, and we have to deal with different agencies, both from the state or federal environment, so that we know that we're all rowing in the same direction. It might be EPA, it might be FEMA, it might be other agencies. We want to all use nature-based solutions, but we don't have a universal definition. Each one of the agencies has a different definition so that they can meet or deal with their programs and sectors impacted. For FEMA, nature-based solutions are defined as sustainable planning, design, environmental management, and engineering practices that weave natural features or processes into the built environment to build more resilient communities. Among the objectives for its implementation is that we need to move from a gray infrastructure to a green one. Gray infrastructure tend to be invasive, are concrete or steel, and require maintenance so that they can be useful for more time. On the other hand, even though green initiative cost more initially, maintenance is reduced as time goes by and are strengthened naturally. Part of the problem that we are facing here in our built environment in the urban areas is because of the gathering of water. The recent studies shows that we have more runoff water than in other cases. 55% remains as runoff, and only 15% is absorbed so that it will go back to the subterranean or underground water. But when we have a different type of soil, a different type of surface, we can gather more of that water in the underground. we have 40% that evaporates, and we only have 10% of runoff. This leads us to the fact that we should emulate natural systems and increase infrastructure resilience, so we will be strengthened as time goes by. These strategies based on nature can be used in small scale or large scales. These will provide an opportunity to rehab the natural processes in the ecosystem, in the basins or regions. So that allows us the opportunity to have more ample areas of work. When we use the programs that we have available at this moment that Nitza mentioned before, we have HNGP and public assistance if we work on a small scale, because the mitigation program on PA works consistently. We could do a small scale project with a mitigation, but we could have a large scale project under HGMP, so we can work in the same location, a same project funded by two different programs. Next. The green measures are emulating nature, so they tend to protect several risks at the same time. For example, flooding and droughts. We are seeing here 3 examples of mitigation techniques that deal with different types of flooding: riverine floods, coastal floods, and urban floods, and all of them can be used or dealt with the solutions we can mention. We can have stormwater parks, stream river restoration, horizontal levees. So we're going to show you the different strategies for each one of these type of situations. When we have riverine flood watershed scale, we have a big scale project opportunity for stormwater with stormwater parks, stream restoration, and stream bank stabilization. Other types of mitigation techniques to stabilize the terrain that we can mix, we need to understand that these can be worked near water or far from water. When we have landslides, all of these opportunities, some of the opportunities might be vegetation life stakes, vegetation riprap, or green gabions, or we can replace the gray gabions with green gabions. Gray gabions is what we most usually see. In terms of coastal flooding, we have opportunities so that we will be restoring dunes. We might do coastal wetland restoration or reef restoration. This will allow us to deal with several issues, including water entry into the coast. We can, in the case of urban flood, we can use vegetable swales, we can use infiltration basins, and other measures. During the process of identifying these green solutions, we have to take several things into account. What is the program that will best deal with my problem? Then we need to define the risks. And then lastly, we need to quantify what are the benefits of the project that I want to implement. The nature-based measures have direct and indirect benefits. The direct benefits are tied to quantifiable measures. How long did the road closure, was there flooding damages reduction, erosion damages reduction, or ecosystem services? We're using a tool. We introduce the values, and this tool that we have in FEMA will allow us to understand what are the benefits versus cost of each proposal. In terms of indirect benefits, these touch economic, ecological, and social and cultural arenas. mostly in order to develop these indirect benefits, we recommend those applying that they develop a narrative for the project that will support the need to implement these green measures and will allow us a better understanding of it so that we can have more information of the benefits and allow us to evaluate it easily. I'm going to let Nitza give you some examples of mitigation projects through FEMA. Thank you, Kathia. Aside from those concepts that Kathia shared with us, we are going to add now some examples of how our mitigation team in FEMA Puerto Rico has been incorporating all of these measures and initiating this conversation with the government of Puerto Rico, which is applying for it. And of course, all those projects that are dealing with climate change. The first example is a slope stabilization project, reduces erosion, as Kathia mentioned. In both programs, mitigation programs, we have a proposal for projects that are offering or proposing gabions to reduce these problems. But what we're trying to do is that we are proposing to the people that are requesting these funds, what we are trying is to change the gabions from cement or gray gabions to green gabions, which is what is more adaptable to nature. So this will reduce long-term maintenance and give good stabilization results. Another example that we have are projects addressing climate change, and it's a combination here in this example of 3 different projects under HMA. These programs are independent and deal with different risks and needs, but together they go after the same purpose of helping the community in the southern part of the island. We are trying to promote resiliency in the community when they face droughts, floods, and other problems. This is the aquifer storage recovery, and this was approved under PDM. The 2 other projects were approved under HMGP recently, and they are the Patillas Dam Seismic Retrofit and Salinas Water Supply System. On the one hand, the project for the seismic retrofit is essential so that they can keep their water capacity. This allows that area to keep more water and to deal with some droughts that we are expecting in the following years, not just in Puerto Rico, but in the world. Then the Salinas Water Supply System project will use extra water in that area and lead them to Salinas so that we can have water in the different areas of that region. These channels are near the Salinas water supply system, so we will be having a positive impact in that area. So these projects are different and they're dealing with different situations, but if we see it in a larger scale from a different perspective, we are in fact improving the resilience of the community, and we're responding to one and more hazards in the same region. We can offer indirect benefits through different measures. When we use nature-based mentions, we are going to have more vegetation, we're going to have better water quality, among others. In the end at the end, and to conclude this presentation, we're offering different resources that you can check to be able to understand all of the phases and all of the requirements for applications. You're going to be able to obtain more information on all of the hazard mitigation assistance grants. We thank you for your attention. Now we will allow our colleague Pedro to be able to present the next phase of this plenary, of this breakout room. Good morning, good afternoon. To continue with this topic, the example that I'm going to offer today is another example of what we're doing. It's a coastal mitigation. We're dealing with hurricane winds, storm surge, erosion control, and stormwater management mitigation measures for the Centro Vacacional de Boqueron in Cabo Rojo, Puerto Rico. This is a proposal that is still in conceptual. FEMA does not design. So the people applying for this, they need to find those resources and they need to be able to comply with all of the environmental principles and requisites. As we heard before, it needs to be cost effective, that it can be viable, that it has outcomes, and that it be perfect for the program that is being applied to. So this presentation has three parts to it. We need to know the intensity of the event, the damages, and then the mitigation phases that we can, whereas we can mitigate or avoid the same type of problems. In this case, Centro Vocacional de Boqueron is located in the west side of Puerto Rico in Cabo Rojo. It had some damages, severe damages after Irma and Maria. So this description will give you some information on the intensity of the event in terms of storm surge, hurricane wind, gust speeds, which was like 80 miles per hour, soil erosion, where we had waves of 3 feet and more, and power outage. As a resource of information, we can use several federal and local registries, photographs, and information that will allow us to understand the intensity of the event in that region. Right now, we're using NOAA in this case, and you can find it in the web pages of each one of the federal agencies. This will indicate where the region is located or where the property is located. So this will give you information on surges in that place and nearby that place at different points in time. So that allows us to see what is going on, not necessarily statistically perfect, but we know that is among 1 to 2 feet of storm surge. So sometimes sensors do not work in these type of events, but we're looking for the best information available in this type of thing. We need just a point of reference to start with. In this map, you can see the wind gusts and rain, and that allows us to determine the approximate speeds of the wind gusts at different parts of the island. And this is very important to deal with individually for each one of the locations that is being considered. As you can see in the map, Boqueron is marked specifically because the surges were different in other places, but now we know that we had wind gust speeds of 70 to 80 miles per hour. So this is not work globally. We're trying to go as near to the location as possible. The same thing with rainfall. In 48 hours in Hurricane Maria, we had 5 to 10 inches in that particular area. So that is also a way of showing the intensity of this event. And we have other tools that NOAA has developed and is available in their pages. We'll show you simulations of what to expect in terms of storm surges, and climate change, as well as the rising sea level. So you can check an expected surge and an expected flooding through these simulations. This information that we get in terms of the location and the intensity of what we are expecting, we are confirming through different other methods, such as photographies that we gathered in the area that will show the damages in the area. You're going to see catamarans that were wrecked. You see the problems, and you can see the movement and the erosion of sand. So you see runoffs in the different areas where the cabins are located. You see that the roofs were damaged by water infiltration, and some metal terraces were blown away. So these are damages that are part of the impact of that event. When we go to the other area, which is Villas Dos, you can see the roof cover damages and the flying debris due to high winds. So this allows us to see the damage and how the interior of such housing areas were damaged, because that allows water to come in. So mitigation is any sustained action taken to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to people and property from natural hazards and their effects. We need to be very insistent in this, and we have several different programs. We use the PA406 mitigation. FEMA is allowed to participate in this type of assistance. Both programs have to be viable and cost effective and aligned to the goals of this. So what about specific mitigation strategies? We have to protect the coast, to control floods, to manage stormwater, and to deal with hurricane wind resistance. If we go to the detail, one of the proposals is a walkover boardwalk with 900 lineal feet, and this has several functions. It's going to protect the sand dunes, which is what is protecting from storm surges. And of course, the loss of vegetation is also a problem. So that walkover boardwalk would allow us to deal with that. And we have that this mitigation was suggested by Dr. Robert Mayer, Mike Morello of Aguadilla UPR Center for Marine Ecology. So they are knowledgeable people that are providing this type of recommendations that would provide help to this area. In terms of coastal protection, to the right, you will see Boqueron and how it has been eroded, and there is a change of levels from the walkway to the area. So what we are doing is have deal with sandbags and geotextiles to deal with the shoreline erosion, loss of sand, and inlet flooding. It's supposed to last around 25 years. This is a measure that was proposed and adopted because it was cost effective and viable. And if we continue with the coastal protection, aside from the sandbags, we need vegetation, native vegetation, local vegetation that can withstand high salinity and that can deal with the impact of waves and droughts, and that it can be propagated easily and widely. We have 4 different species that we are considering based on those requirements that I mentioned, but we have to have specific recommendations per location. We have some information on websites where we have all types of vegetation and the requirements of location so that we can plan for that, or the person applying can do it. And what about flood control? We're offering for the southwest area an earth berm flood barrier. The only road that is in that area was covered because of floods. So we are using this earth berm flood barrier, which is 3 feet wide and 2 feet high, to protect parking and common areas and the main access road from marsh water overflow in case of a high rain event. This will also protect the administration building and local access to cabins and the main access road. All of these areas are protected by this method. In terms of stormwater management, 55% that becomes runoff. What we're doing right here is an infiltration basin. Before it becomes a runoff, we have to collect this water in the surface and direct it on a trailway or an infiltration basin so that once the ocean goes back, we will have water for 6 or 7 hours in these containers, and it will slowly drain and come back to its main source so that we don't have localized floods in the area. Some other measures are not green. We have the street light posts, and we needed something that was resistant to the winds. And we also wanted to be resistant to high salinity. So what we're doing is reinforcing the material in these light posts. And in terms of the post bulb and the light bulbs, we again have a need to have high salinity resistance and resistance to high winds. But we also need to have lights that deal and respond to the needs of marine life. We're using a different color light so that we can protect the habitat for example, turtles that come in to nest in the area. And what about the terraces that were lost during this situation or event? We're proposing angulars that will allow to reinforce the roof terrace with a continuous metal bracket to sustain high winds. And adding to the high wind resistance, we have to check case by case, and we need to see what other things we need in different other buildings. For example, in this administration building, we wanted to replace windows. We wanted to apply roof treatments, add scoopers and or downspouts, and anchoring the roof equipment to safeguard load path as deemed necessary. So we have several wind retrofit measures in this area. So we are mitigating against wind, and we are reinforcing the building. Of course, that needs to have clean the roofs, use the downspouts, seal the roofs, etc. And to conclude, I just want to reinforce all of what was said in our presentations. Aside from the resilience that it provides the facility, we have technical benefits, ecological benefits, aesthetic benefits, and economic benefits that accompany these mitigation techniques. So it not only protects the structure for a next event, but it's going to have additional benefits to the zone, including the economy, not only of the municipality, but of the region. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nitza, Kathia, and Pedro, for this presentation. We want to now open the space for questions. Good afternoon to all. My question has to do with the comment I wanted the links for the design manuals, and my question is basically the following. Who is communicating all of this information to professional associations? The Association of engineers, of architects, because I am surprised and I think it's wonderful that we have all of this information somewhere, but who is telling all of these professional associations about this information aside from forums like this, which do not reach a lot of the engineers and architects that are licensed here in Puerto Rico? Can we have an additional effort so that all of these professionals get a hold of this such valuable information? That is my comment. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pedro. We are noting your observation and comment. We want to capitalize all of the different forums that we have available, such as this, that has been organized in alliance with other federal agencies. And I don't know if Pedro, Kathia, or Nitza have something else to add. Good afternoon. Nitza Ayala here. At least from HNDP, we are starting some initiatives to continue the conversation, present this type of topics, and collaborate with other entities so that we can let this information get to a more ample audience, such as municipality, NGOs, or nonprofit organizations. And aside of that, we are also trying to be more vocal and participate in events such as this so that we can let people know about these resources that are available. If Kathia or Pedro, my colleagues, can share more information, I believe they will do so. Yes. Good afternoon, Kathia here. Yes, from risk hazard mitigation and public assistance side, when we have the opportunity to meet with applicants directly, as Pedro mentioned, we help in the development of these proposals. So we're meeting the team, the whole team is meeting with applicants so that we can share all of this information and let them know, let the government of Puerto Rico know that we are here to assist in the development of these proposals. And I also understand that the group that is in charge of redistributing the information are also working with the office, the Engineers Association, and the Architects Association, so that they can, all of the specialists in this field can have the information. So we're trying to move in all directions so that all of these initiatives are available to those people that are going to help us in the reconstruction. Maybe we can also deal with the question that Héctor Vélez mentioned from EPA. ¿Qué oportunidades tenemos para tener una recuperación más equitativa en el caso de desastres?
Sí, sí. Bueno, en relación, ¿verdad?, a lo que hemos estado discutiendo hoy, son los programas de subvención.
In terms of what we've been talking, we have grant programs to decrease hazards from events, from natural events. And it's very important that we mention, as we said before, that these mitigation projects have to be aligned to the mitigation plans, and the mitigation plans go through a review process. And in this exercise of planning to decrease or reduce risks, we have several consultations that need to happen with community, with the public in general. So it's very important that in those spaces that are available, not just to listen to the government, but to understand and listen to the people that will be impacted with this. These spaces need to be capitalized. And I think that this is one of those strategies, one of the many strategies that could help us to ensure that what is written in that plan and that vision that is part of that plan in terms of the different investments to reduce hazards can take into account that consultation with community and governmental agencies as needed. I don't know if Kathia, Nitza, or Pedro want to add something else. FEMA is not a regulatory agency. We are here to assist once the government and the applicants have developed and have talked about their plans and interests that can be translated into long-term measures, and we can assist after that because they have interest and ideas to share.
There's a couple of English speakers. Just to let you know, the green infrastructure workshops that will take place on the 4th and the 5th of May. You choose which day you want to go, the 4th or the 5th, they're the same material. They will be given in English by the Army Corps of Engineers, and for Spanish speakers, there will be translation services. Para los que hablan español, pues los talleres de bioingeniería del 4 y 5 pues, van a tener servicio de traducción. Gracias.
Gracias, Luis. Bueno, yo creo que podemos dar por... Pedro, adelante.
I just want to verify that this is the workshop that is going to be a popular center, the 4th and the 5th of May, and the topics are different on both days, or it's the same workshop repeated on both days? That's my question. You can go one day or another. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. And this is in person where it's not virtual. So go register and be part of this. We're going to have limited attendance. Thank you. Of course. I think we can conclude this section. Thank you all for being here with us. And we are available to continue this conversation, and we invite you to support all of the other breakout sessions that we'll have from now on. Thank you so much.